Number 1 Iron Age Booty Daddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Iron Age Nights. Sorry, that was a terrible intro. I didn't have my buttons set up. I was making sure the stream was like, hey, what's going on, everybody? Oh, man. I think I have nailed at least 50% of the landings on this show since we have started. And I felt like...
generous, I think.
Yeah, well, you know, generously in the beginning. Nowadays, it's just like, whatever. It's like, yeah, be all right. The chat knows. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Iron Age Nights, a show that I don't think any of us thought would have continued much longer than a couple months, and yet here we are almost over a half a year later. This is episode 42. I think it's episode 42. If it's not episode 42, you really need to let me know so I can change the title. Pretty sure it's episode 42. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long few days for me, so I need this. I need this like an alcoholic needs... Hey, beer! What was I saying? I'll drink to that. Oh, man.
I won't drink to at this point.
That's right. I turned Daniel P. Riley into an alcoholic. That's never...
On Friday, that's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Brian, I'm wearing your shirt because your Fun My Comic was supposed to go off, but it's having technical difficulties.
Wow. Brian does have technical difficulties. That's how he do. So that is in fact how he do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Let's say hello to the chats and then introduce my fantastic co-host and then our awesome guest. So over on Rumble, we got 10 Cage. What's going on? Brian McCoppin, how are you doing? Good, sir. Chatsu's over there on Rumble. Sword Rush, what's going on, man? John A. Douglas, how are you doing? Betty Adams, hello. Betty Adams, get away from those degenerates. Don't. just maintain your 6 feet. Like that's about the only thing that I want to come back from, like the lockdown crap, is like the 6 feet, like in supermarket lines. It was so nice being like supermarket lines and gas station lines, and people aren't like breathing on your neck. Oh, it was great. That's the only thing I want to keep. That's the only thing I want to keep. But yeah, Redoubt Productions is over there on Rumble. How are you doing? Garham, how are you? What the hell kind of a name is that?
He's a frequent contributor to the prompts over on Iron Age Media.
Oh, that explains it. Okay, that explains the name. Yeah, I get it now. It's okay. Anyway, over on YouTube, we've got A.S. Bernard. What's going on, man? Betty Adams over analysis. Double dipping, ma'am. See how you are. Horizon Talker, how are you doing? 10 Cage, also double dipping. The double dip is when you are in more than one chat at one time, which makes you almost as crazy as me. Redoubt Productions, also double dipping. How are you doing, good sir? Eric Grant, how are you doing? Swift Sword Rush, what's going on? Evely Music, how are you doing? Brian McCoppin, double dipping. Country Cookin' 45, hi. Hello, Country Cookin', how are you? What are you cooking? Because I got a smoker that I just built. Yeah. Anyway, we won't talk about that. I keep telling myself, I'm like, I won't talk about it until Sunday coffee. I won't talk about it till Sunday coffee. They were trying to get me to talk about it on Wednesday night. Or they were just saying random stuff and I was bringing it back to my smoker. But I maintain they were trying to get me to talk about my smoker. And I won't let that go. Johnny Douglas, what's going on? You're down in YouTube as well. Periopsis Press, how are you doing? Frederick Weemont, what's going on, good sir? Anthony Rondinelli, how are you? Wait, which one did I say hello to? Eric Grant or Eric Wag? Both of you Erics. Hello, how are you? The Erics are that's weird seeing both of your names together. It's just don't do that anymore. Iron Age, beat it, sir. You're a host. You're a freaking and you're mixing with the oh my god! Don't let them touch you. Don't let them touch you. You don't understand. Just
you gotta go down with the peasants to make sure.
Phrasing, sir. Phrasing.
Right? Don't go down on the peasants, Richard.
Yeah.
Black Dragon Comics, what's going on? Rose, my lovely wife, says so many nerds, so little time. What are you planning on? Anyway, yeah, I will roast
us peppers.
I will. No, the fuck she won't. Absolutely not. No, I bar that this year. That's not a thing. No. The peppers aren't coming in. The peppers aren't coming in good this year. It's weird. Like she made a fantastic freaking marinara sauce that she's gonna jar. She had me taste it. Oh, dude, oof, all fresh tomatoes and everything from the garden. It was fantastic. The ultimate kahuna for $1.99 says, "Wow, it's time for Iron Age Knights to get mooned." Woo! No. Oh man.
Kahuna, man.
It is kahuna. It is kahuna. That is for sure. Guilty Gearhead, how are you doing, man? Iron Age Marketing, good sir. How are you doing? JVP Music, what's going on?
JVP.
All right. First round of jalapeno powder was just made. 20 peppers, enough only for half a shaker, just to give an idea of how much it takes. Yeah, it actually takes a lot to make. It does. That is the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here. And JVP. Or wait, no, the Ultimate Kahuna. Why did I say JVP? I don't know. I'm tired, ladies and gentlemen. The Ultimate Kahuna, thank you so much for the $1.99 super chat if I did not say that. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time to welcome the man who had to send me an extra book just to meme me. And to be perfectly honest, it's like it was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, but he inadvertently gave me a special collector's edition that nobody else has but me. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for the man who sent the meme that turned into a collector. Yes, ma'am. Who sent the meme that turned into a collector's edition? Richard, Iron Age Media, man. How are you doing, man? How's your last week been?
Overall, good. I realized that once again, man, the fulfillment is like I feel like it's Tom and Jerry or something like that, where I'm like I've won, I've got it this time, and then like another anvil falls on my head or something like that. Yeah, and because somebody was like, I got my tracking number, but it shows that it hasn't been doing anything, and I'm like, what? That's odd. That should be impossible. And then I looked and I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
a whole strip of labels got dropped. And so as a result, I never packed them. And yeah, anyway, it's just been, it's like one little, it's like Chinese water torture with this thing. But yeah, issue number 2, I'm going to be printing it early. I'm going to pack it. Everything is going to be all nice and labeled. And then hopefully the day will come and I'll just, do a
Clip
a
this.
single
Clip,
gigantic drop
clip
off
everything
at the
he
post
just
office.
said right
I know,
now.
that's what I'm hoping.
Clip-
I'm dreaming. Probably
clip.
won't happen. But this is what I'm hoping for.
Trippy, we need that clip, and it needs to be called Richard Wishful Thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking. Yes. Well, this time I made the campaigns much simpler in terms of how many options people had on things. So that should
Oh man.
definitely streamline things. But everything's going great. The campaign passed the 4K mark between Indiegogo and Fund My Comic, and over 100 backers, and it continues to climb.
Really quickly. Hey, my love. We have to spend money on Rich, but it's on Richard. It's okay. It's over. He's right there. We got it. That's a weird angle.
That-
Right there.
There we go.
We have to spend
think
money
it's
on
an
Richard.
argument
That
you're
is a
gonna win.
strange angle.
But
she looks at me and she's like, "Really? All of the money we're spending on
You
the
don't
smoker
have
that you're
to.
building?" I mean,
you
I don't.
never have to.
I don't.
But
No, because I don't want you
I
sending
know,
me
I know,
free
I know.
shit. Because I know you will anyway. But I don't like. I actually want to put my money where my mouth is, and I don't get to do that very often. So it's awesome.
Because you don't have any.
I spent it all on a smoker. Okay.
a cheap smoker. No, nothing's cheaper. Nothing more
Ooh.
expensive than.
I actually no.
free, right.
He's
You
not
know what I mean?
wrong. It's a cheap smoker, but
Yeah, not cheap as in like it is cheap. As in like you got.
I don't know, dude.
everything
You see
for
some of the
cheap.
welds on this thing. It's pretty cheap. Like,
Cheap, but it's
Fair
enough.
yours.
it's my exactly. It's mine though. I had the kids bring some stuff home, and they're like, "Dad, what could we use this stuff for?" And I'm like, "I know exactly what." So my door stop, I had a totally different design in mind.
You got your kids out in the neighborhood ripping things out of people's out from under people's trucks.
Okay,
you know,
I
That
can
was
neither
John's
confirm nor deny that my children may or may not have acted of their own volition or on my command to bring things home. I can't confirm nor deny any of those things.
Hey,
Walking
Dad,
around with
we,
bolt
we
cutters and
stole-
hacksaws.
Hey, Dad, we
Um,
stole like 10 bars of rebar from the construction site down the road.
Dude, no, I actually deliberately have avoided rebar. I thought about it. I thought about
Yeah,
some
that
rebar,
seems
but
brutal.
that stuff gets a little hard. That gets, and not only that, but just rebar to weld. Ugh, the fumes from that stuff is gnarly.
They
don't-
sneak
That's
into
because
basement
Everly,
copper tubing.
to answer that, Everly, this camera probably is from like 1993. I'm not really sure.
Oh, there you go. It's retro. Good, sir. That's what you call it. It's retro.
I've got like 3 cameras. Technically, one isn't hooked up, but I've got a camera from 1994 up above right now, pointed at my soundboard, and then this Canon camera from who knows when, and then another Sony digital camera. So all analog. So yeah, you basically nailed it.
Live
Awesome.
from
That's actually
1993.
really cool. I didn't realize that I was going to hate our guest like with a deep passion in the beginning of the show. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there's another guy here that I have to introduce into the show as well. And he's the guy that loves to go in, touch your brain, caress your brain ever so gently, and pull that story out like a guy trying to rip out a catalytic converter on a car. I don't know why I said that. It's Daniel. We all know him. He's whimsyland.org. He's going to help you write your story. That was a terrible analogy. I think I had an aneurysm. I'm sorry, Daniel. I tried.
It's all right. I'm laughing. It's fine. But I was like, where the fuck is he going with
I
this?
don't
one?
know. I'm gonna be honest. I lost it halfway through, and I'm like, what do people rip out? Catalytic converter, because that's a thing that I've actually known to happen to people, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it happened to me against my will.
Oh, yeah. See, you get it. You get the joke.
I
Anyway,
behind
Daniel.
the element, they stole my catalytic converter in a parking lot one night.
Oh God,
Yeah.
that's awesome. It doesn't take much.
Nope.
It really doesn't. They're very, very easy. Anyway,
Asshole with a sawzall and a skateboard could do it.
hey, now we don't need to be attacking me like that. Oh, what? Anyway,
So it's your fault.
maybe I got good money from it.
All right, fine. As long as you got good money from it.
Oh, Daniel, how are you doing, man? How's your last week been?
I'm doing well. Not much to report. I've been working on a bunch of client projects, books that I am very excited to see come out in the next couple of months. Great
There you go.
stuff. Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. Man, I am mentally tapped. This is not good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I get to introduce somebody who's been requested on the show for many months now. This guy has been requested on the show basically since we covered him on the Wednesday night live stream several months back. We got to watch the short animated film that he did for his project. All of us were absolutely enamored by the way that he could color things, by the darkness of the story, yet the hopefulness of the story as well, if I remember correctly. And something that really just intrigued all of us as something we'd never seen before. And so it is my very, very humble honor to welcome to the show the Animated Moon. Good sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I'm been kind of tired since the last release, so I've been taking a bit easy, but it's been nice. As a quick announcement here to start, I've been told by certain members of the Gilded, and completely unrelated, I'm hoping that Trippy's sitting in here and so you can see this. But for those of you watching, if you go over to my store, I've got a coupon, have a drink, use to buy something that'll be 5% off your order. I've been told my shilling skills aren't that great, so hey, there you go.
You're in
Hey,
good company.
I know people like that. And that is over on the animatedmoon.com. And
It's
seriously,
me.
have a drink. You did the have a drink. That's
Have a
freaking-
drink, no spaces, just all caps, have a drink. And that'll be good until I think Monday, so the VOD people, you can get on that as well.
That is
Nice.
freaking cool.
Better
That's
than me.
Awesome.
Figured
So
it'd be fun to do something.
there are many questions to ask, and ultimately the first one is always relatively the same because I feel like it's the most interesting question. What got you into, and now I mean you've done minor animation, you're doing your webcomic, your story. Where does that all start for you? Were you young? Were you old? Who inspired you? Where does this journey begin?
Oh boy, do we have 15 hours? Let's
Let's go. Yeah, I'll do it. I mean,
so
I got
I-
a smoker to build, but I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, so I would say that I definitely did start young. I started with writing first. I wanted to be a writer when I was like 11 years old. I actually distinctly remember the night I basically figured out what I was going to do, and I was laying there, and I was going into middle school, and so I'm like, oh, I'm, becoming older and all this kind of stuff. You think you're all that when you're that age. But I get to thinking, like, well, what do I want to do? Like, what do I actually enjoy doing? Right? You start asking those questions around that age, and I realized at the moment I was like, wait a minute, I really like writing. I like writing stories. Like that was always the thing that I wanted to do all the time in like assignments and stuff like that. And so I got to thinking, I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't need a school assignment to tell me to write a story, basically, right? I don't need that. I can just do it. And so that just immediately ignited my brain. Like it was just like, it was like any kind of limitation was like gone. So everything I watched from that point on, and everything I listened to, especially music in particular, was really inspiring. Jethro Tull, Peter Gabriel, Rush, that was a lot of what I was listening
Ooh.
to. And so it was just this blender of stuff. And it was all garbage, right? Because you're 11 years old and you don't know what you're doing. But that just was circulating in my head. And I actually started writing a story. And I had a blast writing it. And I got about 120 pages in. And that's when I kind of started to slow down. I was getting into high school and I put it aside and I fell into this sort of limbo where I wasn't really sure what to do. And then what I kind of discovered as I was going through high school was there was so much I wanted to do that I was having a difficult time presenting as story, right, as a written story. And so my brother had been getting into drawing, and I was really inspired by that. So he was actually a big one who kind of inspired me as far as getting into drawing goes. But he was more the comic book side himself, kind of ironically, actually, now that I think about it. So I was like, well, what can I do that's a little bit different? What can I do that that would kind of give a unique experience? And that was animation, especially considering you could do stuff with music and animation. You could do voice acting. It had no limitation to it. So that was really appealing to me. The only limitation is just it takes a long freaking time, right? And so when I started getting into animation, I made my first animated film when I was still in high school, as my senior year. My multimedia teacher was the one who actually really encouraged me. He's like, "Hey, can you do a film? We're having this film festival." And I'm like,
cool.
"Yeah, we have about 6 months before it happens." So I buckled down. I was like, "I'm going to tell a short little story." It's still up on YouTube, actually. It's called "In the Court of the South Moon." Very basic compared to what I've done. But I will say, as a bit of trivia, I did all the voice work, both of the characters, in one take, and I'm still pretty happy about that.
That's a skill and a half to do any sort of voice work or recording in one take and be happy with it. As somebody who I do YouTube videos at least once a week. I didn't even do this week's video in one take. Like, it was 2 or 3 takes, and I nixed. But dude, anytime you get it in one take, absolutely be proud of that.
Yeah. No, so I do that. I get everything done. I got to do some sound design as well. I was upstairs recording stuff with like an egg beater and like a bass strings and stuff like that to get certain sounds and whatnot.
Oh, you actually did prop sound work.
Yep. I did.
Dude, that is so awesome.
I did the sound design as well. I worked really close with a good friend of mine for the sound design on the Blind King film. Super fun. It's the way I prefer to do it because it just gets such a more precise sound.
I love practical sound work like that.
Oh yeah.
So
it's super fun.
As far as like your setup for that goes, I mean, are you obviously you have some retro equipment with the with your cameras and everything else, like you were talking. I mean, is this all? Are you kind of going for that more retro feel when you're doing this thing, or
there's a little
is
bit
that
of
is that just kind of like just the way it happened, or is that intentional?
It's sort of circumstantial because, like, basically, growing up, my dad always had this junk just laying around, right? And so there was always kind of a mystique around old equipment that's archaic. There's sort of this, it's this mystery box, right? It was used for something at some point, but now it's been completely forgotten. And I think what's kind of interesting is growing up, I grew up in the 2000s, and the 2000s were an interesting time where everything was still kind of experimental. Like nowadays, everything's so designed, everything's so streamlined. But back then, you did have a closer connection to this older technology, but it was still archaic, right? Nowadays, like, I think I don't think it's impossible for people to get into it. I didn't really start getting into the older tech stuff until I was older and I could actually like figure it out and put some time in and had a reason to. But the first thing I kind of got into was cassette tapes, because it was like, well, these things are like 60 cents a pop or something like that. It's a fun hobby to kind of play around with and get into tape and whatnot. And it just kind of grew from there. I started collecting old TVs and stuff like that. And actually, I can't really show it, unfortunately, but I have a FM transmitter that transmits from my computer over the air so I can pick stuff up on channel 4 on my computer.
Oh, cool.
And for anybody complaining, don't worry, it's not like I'm sending this, like I'm not broadcasting this miles out or anything like that. It's all just local. It's very local. I'm not Elon Musk. I actually am afraid of the FCC. But so basically every TV you can see, there's actually back there that little monitor there, that's actually a TV. It's actually analog. That can pick it up. There's another little TV back there. Unfortunately, that burnt out. That burnt out. I gotta open it up. It's a cheap one, unfortunately. Black and white, but I got other TVs, so I can just like transmit stuff, right? It's not HD, but who cares? You know, it's remote TV. It's awesome. It's great in and of itself. So my whole premise is use the best of every decade. Like this stuff works, right? This all of this equipment, it still can function given the right environment. You don't need. It's not like modern technology where if you don't have the drivers, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had stuff like that come up. So that's why I actually really like analog. That's why the board. And actually, I can show you. Here.
Wait, do you have an analog board?
Yeah, that's what it is right there. So you can see.
Actually, okay. So one of the things that I have wanted to do with my sound setup, I have my dream sound setup is to go completely analog with a digital plugin. Because analog, if there's a failure, you know exactly where that failure is.
Yeah, it's a lot more like,
and it's all done in a chain, and a lot of people get confused when you start talking about chaining different audio effects together and compressions and reverbs. But you can master your sound before it ever goes into an output.
Yep.
And it's something that I've been around, I've worked around, and I love it. I love having the ability. But I mean, even for a lot of that, we're still talking multiple thousands of dollars.
You'd be surprised.
Has it come down?
Well, let me put it this way.
Uh-oh.
Basically, all of what you see back here is stuff that people have just gotten rid of. They don't want it anymore. And the same goes for that board.
Okay.
So
you've kind of gotten lucky in some of that, because I've looked.
There is a little bit of that.
Yeah. I've tried, and when you find guys that know what they're sitting on, and that's just always been my luck, because I meet people who know that they're sitting on some gold tier stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like, and they're like, yeah, you know, it's gonna cost you like $700 because they don't make it anymore. And I bought it for $250 back in the 70s. It's like, you son of which in modern day dollars it would be about that much, and they don't make it anymore, and it's built like a tank, and it still works, and it's in almost perfect condition. Like I've always gotten screwed on deals like that. But man, dude, if I could get the analog stuff going, I would. I absolutely would. My entire sound set, this wall back here wouldn't be the nerd stuff. It would be all the audio stuff that I would love to, because doing all that old school. Oh man, I love that stuff, man. So good.
Yeah. Well, I will say part of what kind of makes it work is that I'm not looking for anything specific. In fact, and the other thing is like this is an old Mackie. It's a 24 channel 8-bus Mackie.
Oh.
And
I've got a little I think it's a 4-channel Mackie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mackies are good, dude, especially the old ones, man.
They're great, and like a friend of mine, a good friend, the sound designer friend of mine, he was even saying they're built to last, but with this specific Mackie, unfortunately, that's like the one exception to the rule, because apparently they cheapened out on the ribbon cables.
Oh no!
The aux sends unfortunately went out, and some of the channels are really flaky. And it's just like, oh no! So after this interview, I'm gonna actually be like next few days tearing this whole thing down.
My Mackie went out because it got dragged through my house by a bloodhound.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah, so that's why I upgraded my audio, is because I was running through a Behringer and a Mackie simultaneously. So not only I could have audio, but no, Mackie's, outside of letting them get dragged through your house by a bloodhound and whatever thing that you have that's apparently not a Mackie. Mackie equipment, especially if you can find the old school Mackie equipment and then just source it into a USB output, like you cannot go wrong with that stuff.
Yeah, so what I have it running through what's called a PreSonus AI.
Yep, I know exactly what PreSonus is. Yep. I did not realize we were going to get into this conversation.
You talked to me long enough. That's going to happen. Trust me.
Oh, dude. Okay, so here is where. Oh man, and as much as I want to continue this conversation, for me, I know that a lot of people here on this show are here to listen and hear about your artwork. We're going to check out your animation, your illustrations that you've done. Like, we're going to get into all that. I want to keep talking about sound work, but everybody will leave, and then I won't be able to properly shill you.
Well,
And
then we'll make it a point to come back to that later.
we need, yeah, no. We definitely need to come back because, oh, dude, it's so nice to have somebody who can talk boards and stuff like that. And I'm like, I know this thing.
Get a room, boys.
Okay, sir. Maybe later.
He doesn't
Anyway. So all right, so you get into the writing, you're into the animation. Obviously, you love a lot of the old vintage. You love a lot of the old analog stuff. How does it go from your high school teacher telling you should really work on this animation to getting where to it's just this passion of yours?
Well, part of that is during high school, so before we kind of got we deviated off.
Hey, you deviated. I just gladly let you.
Fair. No, that's fair. I'm very good at that. You're gonna find out. You're gonna have to keep me on point. But anyway, so
all right, Daniel, Richard, you guys are on point tonight. Me and Moon are gonna have a conversation.
So
You got it.
So this competition, it's this sort of local, high school film festival and everything like that. And I apply and I finish the film. It's in, right? And I already knew going in that like it was going to be appreciated, basically. So there was it was competition. There was 3 through first place prize, and then there was a grand prize. And so I had no idea what like going in exactly what was going to happen. All I knew is that they liked it. And a lot of the other films that were in, basically the whole premise of the thing was they wanted to see creative films, like actual like films. A lot of what came in was like more like sponsorship stuff, like where I'm at is a big like windsurfing spot. So it was a lot of like these kids would film themselves windsurfing or whatever and stuff like that. And so mine comes up and it's just like completely different. It's like it's the only animated thing. It's the only like narrative film thing. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is like straight from left field. This like, even I'm just like, this is so bizarre, compared to like what everybody else put in. And so, but as the night's going on, they're laying out the prizes, and eventually comes grand prize, Andrew Clark, here you go, you win. And at that moment I was like, this is awesome. This is great. Great response, people, just that appreciation of the art and stuff like that. That was the first time I really had that. And so I've kind of been not necessarily chasing that ever since, but kind of building on that ever since. It's just this presentation of something different and that can be appreciated.
That's what I got after the first time we saw your work. And that watching that short that you had, I cannot remember what website you had it. I don't remember if you had it on a crowdfunding website, but I remember watching it, and I remember there was a chess game, if I'm not mistaken, because it's been a while. And I remember seeing that. And again, I remember these like solemn, like dark vibes to it. But again, like I said earlier, with this air of hopefulness in the undertones, and you could see that in the artwork, and you could hear that in the background. You could hear that and just tonally, this was something that was different. It's not that, I've never seen. It's not that I've never seen anything like it before. I'd not experienced those combinations of things together before. And that was something, and I think Trippy Soul was on that live stream with me.
I believe so.
And so that was something that really captivated, I think, all of us. I think yours was actually one of the first ones to win the entire night. We've only had 4 of them so far that have everybody has Trippy's high down there. He doesn't remember. But we've only had 4.
Trippy not high.
He's not high at work. But we've only had
allegedly
Trippy. But we've only had 4 that have won the night, and yours, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was one of them. And that was actually you ended up joining the Gilded very shortly after that. But so you come out with something, it's radically different. It's totally different than what people are used to. Does that at that moment become a part of what you go, I want to be the different guy? Or were you just like, I'm on to something? Where's your mindset there? Because there's two different mindsets. I want to be the different guy, or I'm on to something.
Well, I think it's sort of one and the same for me, because essentially where I'm coming from in terms of all of that is I didn't get into a lot of times people get into animation or they get into comics or they get into even writing because it's like, oh, hey, I really liked reading these kinds of books or watching this kind of animation and I wanted to become an animator or whatever, right? And I can kind of relate to that. Like I read books and I enjoyed animation as much as anyone else, Disney and stuff like that. Of course, right? Back when they were good. But
Gotta throw that little caveat.
little caveat.
Necessary caveat.
Yes. But what I really started noticing, I was like, well, wait a minute. There are things I'm seeing in my head that I don't see anywhere else. Like, where is all of this stuff? Where else is it, right? And I think a part of that is, again, kind of going back to that archaic sort of notion, where one of my big inspirations for, as far as you want to talk about tone, you want to talk about atmosphere, that sort of thing, is the Twilight Zone. And, growing up, like, everybody's, like, heard of the Twilight Zone.
Good old Rod Serling.
Yeah.
You've never seen it.
Well, when I was, yeah, you are. You really should check it out. When I was growing up, it was like I could mention something like the Twilight Zone, and it's like, what's that, right? It's like no one knew what this stuff was. And the same thing, especially with music, it's like King Crimson. Who's that? It's this weird band from the started in the '60s, or whatever. It's like, but that was like in my head. That's what was in my head, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, there's so much you can do with animation. Why are we like, where is this other stuff? And I have found it. I have found stuff that really kind of, every now and again, it's very rare. It's like this rare resource that I find that's just like that, and I grab it and I go, hey, wait a minute, hold on, this can happen. This is real, right? Rather than it being this like abundant thing, like, oh, this is how animation is, right? And so when I go into my own work, when I talk about my inspiration, it's not about like finding what was there already. It's about going, well, what more can there be? How can I bring this stuff, what animation is or whatever, into a new place so that it's familiar but different and interesting? I just want to make stuff that's interesting, essentially, right? And I'm not going to do that by doing the 8 billionth, comic cape superhero like kind of style, right? That just doesn't really click with me. And so that, I guess that's kind of my answer to that is it's both. I know I'm onto something because obviously like people are clicking with it. Like, it is intriguing. I don't know, when I do stuff for the Blind King, I'm like, I hope this works because this is out there, the whole philosophy behind it is so like not my own, actually. It's actually not, as far as the Blind King goes, it's based on another philosophy from another game that no one ever knew until Shadow of the Colossus got picked up, and then people kind of retroactively started learning Ico, the game Ico. That's another tremendous inspiration. If you look at Ico, you will see it's like, oh yeah, the lighting, the weird atmosphere, the loneliness, the isolation, all of that stuff is absolutely stuff that I pull from. But the creator of that, of Ico, I can never remember his name. I always feel really bad. I literally thought about looking it up earlier today, but it kind of slipped my mind. The philosophy behind that was something called design by subtraction. Rather than making it more complicated, more world building, more this, that, or the other thing, more flashy, whatever, he stripped things back. It was like, okay, we have 3 levels planned. Do we need 3 levels? How about we just stick to the castle, right? And so that's what the Blind King has been. So it's been entirely experimental. So the fact that it's working is like fantastic. It's like, Wow, I was not expecting that. I'm really happy that people are actually digging it. They're interested in it. It's like it's sort of like, okay, this does work. I'm not crazy. It is something. There is something there, basically, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are responding to it definitely.
Well, and as far as the
I think you
Blind
muted
King
yourself
series,
for us.
am I muted?
No, I'm muted.
Oh, okay. I was going to
Sorry.
say, as far as the Blind King is concerned, how long have you been working on the? I know the first chapter was out some time ago, and you've got this second chapter. Is that out now? I believe.
Yes. Second
Yeah,
chapter.
I was
is
going to say.
completely
I think it came out. And I was trying to remember whether or not I'd gone and read it,
Mhm.
but yeah, I was going to say. So, how long have you been working on this, and how long do you see it like progressing into the future with this particular tale?
So I first started working on the film, and it's kind of a funny story because when I was in university, before I even went to university, I was doing a program for technically it was a digital design program with an emphasis in animation, and I told myself, I was like, if I don't make a film during my time here, I will consider my time there a failure. I need to make at least one film, right? I was hoping to make more than one film, but I won't get into all of that. It was kind of a scuffed program. But anyway, so it's my last year. This was 2020, and for that summer, I was basically like, you know what? Because basically I was looking at, there was a short film class I was going to be taking that was not a short film class. It was like do a project every 3 weeks, and it's like that's not a short film class, right? Especially for animation.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
that's-
I'm like, okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to develop a pitch, and I'm going to pitch it to my professor, and I'm going to say, like, let me do this. Either like I'm going to do this film no matter what, right? Like I was going to make this film happen. Either you're going to make it more difficult on me, or you're going to help me out. And so I developed the storyboards around that time.
Mhm.
Little bit of help that was actually very useful. A friend really helped me to nail down the storyboards. I did the turnarounds. I had everything planned out as far as the designs and stuff like that goes, and just that the general plot of that film. And I pitched it to him, and he's like, "Yep, do it. Go for it. I'm going to let you do that," because he knew I would pull it off. And so that was the first project I did, and essentially this has been such a weird project because it started out I was just going to make it a short film. It was just going to be that moment in the woods, kind of left up to interpretation, kind of ambiguous in that way, and it was just such a bizarrely organic process because I got the inspiration for it from a piece of music. It wasn't even like a full song. It was if anyone has ever heard of Ichika, it's a super popular Japanese guitarist, just shot up in the past few years. He did just a really fascinating piece based on this tuning in ABCDEF tuning, like all the strings ABCDEF, kind of as a joke. But it was this enchanting piece, and it just resurrects, or it just forms this image in your head, kind of thing. And so, yeah, Ichiga Nito.
Music guys in the chat, you understand what he just said, right? Like ABCDEF tuning, like
That's not standard at all, right?
that's nowhere. Now, I am no stranger to playing with alternate tunings. That one's weird.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point. Basically, he put out like this comment. He was like, "Hey, send me a tuning, and I'll play something. I'll make a little song out of it or whatever." And the first one was ABCDEF as a joke, basically. But he makes this like super just enchanting piece. And I actually reached out to the guy, funny enough, years back. I was like, "Can I use this piece in the film?" and he never got back to me, probably for obvious reasons. But I'm actually glad because me and my sound guy got to actually sit down and like compose something, do something original for it, which was super fun, and fit way better. But basically, so rolling all the way back, I'm gonna deviate like that a lot, but basically, I've been working on it since 2020, like March 2020 is when I started working on the idea, conceptualizing it. I have some of the old concept art from that time. I think a lot of it actually is in the art book that's available on my site digitally. You can just go and read it. It's in the same place as the chapters. Mm-hmm. And just conceptualizing the character and everything like that. But at the time, I had no idea what the story really ultimately was. And so I've been discovering it as I've been making it at the same time. So
so you're firmly in the discovery writing kind of process, or do you have an end? Do you have like a final?
Yes. So
because
something
I was gonna say earlier you were saying, and it made me like I was thinking that you had like an ending, sort of that you're working towards.
So basically, I'll keep that in mind, Trevor. I do have an end in mind, right? How and I basically so to answer the other question as far as how long I see this going. So I've been working on it for 3 years. And as a quick side, I actually this last chapter, there's a panel with her mask being taken off her face. Panel is the last time I'm going to have to draw that mask, because I've been drawing that stupid mask for 3 years. Let me tell you, animating that son of a gun was like, oh my gosh, that was so annoying. So I don't have to draw that mask anymore, and that makes me actually kind of happy. But basically, so I'll basically straight up say it, because I've been putting the information out there. Currently, there's 2 chapters out. I want there to be 3 more chapters, so chapter 3, 4, and 5, for the main story that will be released on the site, that will be available just for free, right? And then there will be a chapter 6 that will basically be an epilogue that will be that will go along with the hopefully print release. Hopefully, I can make that happen.
That's the word I was.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I'm a big proponent of the physical, because I don't like what a lot of these, for lack of a better term, asshats are doing when it comes to digital releases, and a lot of the digital scrubbings going on. So when I hear print release and all that, and keep in touch, I'll get you in touch with some guys.
Okay, that's good to know, because I'm gonna need help.
They're all in the Gilded, believe it or not. You're in the right, you're in the Gilded. You're in the right spot. All I got to do is just connect you in DMs.
Oh yeah, no, I'm honestly, I've been super impressed with just the way that people can make stuff happen, and it's okay, this is awesome. It's great to be connected,
Yeah, that was weird for me, because I literally started the Gilded because I was like, well, YouTube people are supposed to have some place to go, like a Discord, and I was like, sure, I'll do the Gilded. And I bullied Trippy Soul and Billy Bob Sack and I think Ram, and it's just grown from there. And now we have people networking and writing books together and doing projects together, and it's just it's nuts. The Gilded is just absolutely nuts.
Yes. So that will be in the future. Hopefully, that's a goal of mine. I would really love to see this in print, and actually sold as a proper book.
So, are you okay if I play this animation reel that you have on your website? Because I want to show some people who haven't seen what you've done and what you're capable of. Because I really, and I just want to show it off because it looks so fantastic.
Go for it. That's what it's there for.
All right. That's so freaking unreal. I Is any of that hand drawn
All of that's hand drawn.
by you?
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say 100%, man.
Yeah.
You
That's-
should,
so-
if you haven't, you should
I-
check out.
I
his
had
live
to
stream.
ask
He
because
live
it-
streams
it-
all
it-
the time.
No, and it's easy to fool people in today's world. And I watched that, and I animation, I feel, is a skill that is rapidly going away from the 2D and into the 3D, and I miss the 2D.
It's more there than you realize, and you're going to see an influx of it, actually, honestly. But
Good.
more significantly, what we're really going to start seeing, and this is actually pretty exciting, honestly, is a deviation. Like the realm of 2D and 3D is going to grow more and more narrow as time passes. Programs like Blender are already like basically skewing those lines, and so we are going to get things that more easily can become like what we would hope. As far as
it's like
2D and stuff like that goes.
one of my favorite animated films of all time is Treasure Planet.
Mhm.
And that was and sadly Disney had to decide to squash that in the ways that they did, and really not make it popular at the time. But that was really one of the early precursors to what we could see when it came to 2D merging with 3D.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was way ahead of its time. Like Treasure, and I think a lot of people recognize that, and they see why Treasure Planet was as good as it is and didn't deserve necessarily to be put on the back burner by Disney. But you look at the technology involved to pull that off. There was a healthy chunk of money. It was a healthy chunk of money to do that. And it's something that as time goes on, I really haven't thought of the merger of 2D and 3D outside of a couple of the Dragon Ball Super movies that have come out recently. Dragon Ball Super Broly, I thought, did a great job with that. But if you're right, and the technology for the merger of 2D and 3D is finally gotten inexpensive enough for guys like yourself to pull it off, I think we're going to be in for a wild ride with some animation. Like,
to give you an idea, like that's kind of the whole point, is eventually you won't be able to tell. That's kind of where we're getting at, is it's coming to the point where like it's not about necessarily is it 2D or is it 3D, it's what is the final image, what is the final render that actually is being achieved. And I actually did a small experiment in utilizing 3D space with 2D planes specifically for a project, the Otherworld microfilm I did. It's on my YouTube, and like the power of just 3D lighting for a scene is so astronomically helpful, so unbelievably powerful in terms of like what you can really do with it. And so as time goes on, yeah, I mean, this is all done with like Blender, and Blender's free, you know. Blender is, you can make full films, like bar none, no questions asked in Blender from day one. It's just a matter of knowing the software. And so that's where we are, is it's available. It's here now.
that's nuts.
And what drawing program do you? Is it Clip Studio Paint or?
Yeah, primarily Clip Studio Paint is my drawing program.
Okay, that's what I think. And they have good 3D integrations, I believe, so you can easily bring in 3D models and bake stuff in and do all this other stuff. So
Actually, that's heavily used in the Blind King, because I'm not going to draw those chessboards. So those are actually 3D models. And so, yeah, no, very useful, and just makes it so much easier to handle really difficult objects and stuff like that, without compromising the line work or anything like that.
That's so cool.
So as you're like leveraging these tools, what are for somebody? Well, okay, let me stop and formulate this properly. But animation is a very time intensive product, right? Even with all this leverage and everything else. The question I have is, as you're doing all this and you are basically going out there creating this kind of product, do you feel like you are doing things as efficiently as you can, or do you think that there are avenues? Do you see improvements coming down the pipe that are going to speed this process up? Do you think that indies should be less afraid of animation? You know what I mean? Or is it as daunting as I feel? Like, am I correct in my assessment that it's a pretty daunting task?
I would say it really depends on what you're going for. So for example, I worked on the pilot for Lackadaisy not too long ago.
Yeah, I saw you mention that.
Yeah, and that was it took them like 3 years to do it, right? I was only on there for about a year. And so something like that is very much still a daunting task because it is taking a more traditional approach. Everything's drawn by hand, all the lighting it has to be composited, everything like that. Everything is cleaned up, right? I was part of the cleanup team. And it was time consuming. Sometimes those frames would take upwards of like 40 minutes to do, just one frame, right? And so it really depends on what you're doing and how you're going about executing it. I know another guy though, Gilded Guy. Yeah, he goes by Gilded Guy. He's part of the street fighting community. If you're familiar with that, he owns Dojo.
Yeah, I know actually what that is. That's what's funny.
yeah, it's still around. It's awesome. It's really cool. And it was so funny. I was talking to him on one of his streams, and he started production on his like 8th film in a series, or like 9th film in a series, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's about 30 minutes long, and I'm thinking about I'll probably get it done in about like a year." And I'm like, "That's freaking crazy! Doing 30 minutes of animation in a year, right?" But he knows his routine, he knows his style, he knows what he can and can't get away with, right? That's the most important thing. Is how can you leverage your tools to make it as efficient as possible, essentially. What are you willing to compromise? Do you want to have like the most pristine, perfect, clean line work and stuff like that? Or can you get a little bit sloppy? Can you make it a little bit more energetic? Can you use that to your advantage, right? So I would say anyone who wants to get into animation, it's really what you make of it, and how you refine it that will really kind of dictate how long it's going to take you. It's always going to be a lot of work. Animation is just good animation is always going to be a lot of work, but it's all about like, what are you trying to get out of it, and how can you use these tools in a way that will make it more efficient? As far as do I feel like I'm as efficient as I can be? I'd say I'm getting there. I'd say I'm learning a lot of more tools. That's why I was learning Blender. Blender does make it perfect.
Yeah, Blender is a very steep learning curve.
It is, but once you understand it, and I had the benefit of learning 3D in school, and so I was able to carry that knowledge. I learned Maya, and let me tell you, going from Maya to Blender, it's like, why didn't we just learn Blender? I know why we didn't, but like, regardless, I love Blender far more than Maya. But there is kind of this like, it is very like esoteric at first. It's very like, just why is this the way that it is? What does any of this mean? Especially coming from other softwares, it doesn't read like a typical software usually.
It's very particular. I used to be very good with Blender for 3D modeling, but then I just
they changed some things up with I think the jump to 3.0 or something like that.
Yeah, it was before that, and I don't remember. I was coming back to it. I was like, oh boy, this is a mystery to me. I'm like, I kind of remember some things, and I'm merging some vertices and doing some stuff like that. But
yeah, I primarily don't use it for 3D modeling. I've done a little bit of 3D modeling, but that's obviously not my strong suit. But I have used it for more like compositing, for putting things together, parallax, lighting, that sort of thing.
So how much are you baking in with with well, I'm sorry, I'm getting way too technical into the Blender side of things here. But I was just kind of curious. I mean, are you doing any of the shading through Blender, or are you basically just using it as kind of like the line work, some of the background line work type stuff?
I would love to get into shaders. That is a whole technical mess that, oh my gosh, I need to wrap my head around. Even with my knowledge of nodes and kind of pipeline sort of style development and stuff like that, it's still like, man, it's just so complicated to figure out like what exactly does what, you know? So I haven't really explored shaders so much.
Yeah, that's where things get crazy, you know?
Yes. Yeah, no. It becomes very powerful at that point.
Oh yeah.
But I have, for the most part, like for example, the microfilm Otherworld, that was all like, you can see like the shadows as the flare is lit and stuff like that. That was all hand done because I couldn't think of a better way to do it at the time.
Yeah.
And so, and I come from a background of just being like, well, just do it by hand, basically.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I'm a little more traditionalist in that way. I'm beginning to branch out because obviously that just takes so freaking long. But I would love to get into the more like technical side if it means saving time, if it means getting cooler effects. Even if I have to compromise, you know, the precision of the effect. That's okay, because you know you got to compromise somewhere that's you got to decide, right? And that's actually a very good compromise because you can do so much more with it. So yeah, like there's so much potential with all that, and it is becoming easier and easier. You know, there's a tutorial for everything. One of the big things I'm looking into and doing research on is pulling line work from 3D models. Because if you can do that, then that's, oh my gosh, that saves so much time.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. And there are definitely ways to do that.
Oh yeah, very easy ways to do that, actually.
Yeah, it's totally possible. Anyway, so as far as to back out of the weeds here, we've gone quite a ways into it. When
Go on, I'm just drinking.
Yeah. So what you know, you said that you're done drawing the mask. What kind of are there any teasers or anything that you want to hint at as far as the, you know, upcoming plot lines, or you know, where are we going to see man, I'm so sorry, but I blanked on the girl's name.
She doesn't have one.
She doesn't have a name. Okay, I was like, I'm like, hold on. What do you call her? What's the
Blind.
term? The blind. Okay.
Blind. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So blind. Are there any you know, hints or things you want to talk about in terms of where the story is going that we can look forward to?
I'm really looking forward to chapter 3. I'll say that because things are definitely going to change tonally, and hopefully like because right now chapter 1 and 2 has been very specifically vague. Like you are just kind of witnessing everything
I
from
definitely
her
feel that.
Yeah. And so that's never really going to go away necessarily, but you will hopefully begin to, and this really comes down to me and how I present it. You will begin to hopefully grasp what you're witnessing, like what specifically you're witnessing, why like chess is so involved, and who these characters really are, and what the relation is to all of them. That will begin to hopefully kind of unfold. One thing that I think that is kind of funny and something that I can clear up. I think that this was more of a problem when it was just the film released, but I will say that Blind is not the Blind King. That is a different character. And
I didn't. Well, I'll be honest. Whenever you said that's Blind, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, that's not what I was expecting. So the because I was like, I don't think that's the Blind King. But anyway, okay, all right.
Yeah, no, you were right. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, this must be the Blind King, right? Obviously, she's blind and everything like that. But that's not the case. I came up with the name before I really had the whole plot sorted out. So that's just kind of a funny circumstance that came out of it. But yeah, I don't know how much I want to say. Partially because like I'm not 100% sure how things are going to go down. I will say the last page of chapter 2, you are introduced to a character I'm very excited to be writing. So that'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, it probably will be a longer chapter as well. So that'll be interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out, because this is already going to be like I'm looking at like 150 140 pages for this whole thing. So gotta be like, yeah. But let's see, is there anything I want to I guess hopefully you will begin to see more of the character of Blind, because again, kind of going back to the whole philosophy of design by subtraction, she's kind of involved in that. She's not meant to be a character where you're like, at least initially, she's not meant to be that character where it's like, oh, let me show you how relatable she is. Let me show you how, like, what her struggle is, or anything like that, so that you can root for her. That's actually not really the point of Blind, at least in the traditional sense. And hopefully that'll become more clear as what goes on, like what exactly she is, and the significance of her inner dialogue, and her reaction to the world. There's stuff I want to say, but it's like, no, don't say that. Let them
I'm tempting you. Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
I'm tempting myself, honestly. Yeah. So I guess that's a lot of what I can say, I suppose. I need to write it, honestly.
All right. Well, I gave it the college try.
We won't drag it out of you.
Yeah. Well, so when is the? I was gonna say I wanted to also mention that you live stream regularly, and people could probably, how far? Like you've been working on chapter 3 for a couple months now, correct?
So chapter 2. Chapter 2 I was working on since the beginning of this year, actually. My goal was to get chapter 2 out by halfway through this year, and I basically did that. It's the 7th.
Was it June or something?
It was July.
Oh, it was July, so it was very
weeks
recent.
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was. I released the first. I released in 10-page batches.
Okay, and how many pages are there total? Maybe I haven't seen all of chapter 2.
Chapter 2 is roughly, I think, like 22 pages, I think, or something like that.
Okay. You know what I think happened? I think I saw the first half of chapter 2. That makes more sense now, because I remember being like,
choose complete.
feeling like I needed to see more. Okay. All right. Well, good. And, okay, I was gonna say, and what's going to, like, you are also talking about a physical release. Are you going to want to have all your chapters complete before you consider doing that, or
honestly,
is there a break point?
Honestly, I do, because the story, you just mentioned you want to see more, right? Like you feel like you need to see more, and that's going to be the way that story is until the end. And even then, at the very end, it'll be, you might want to see more. So I don't know yet. But I don't feel, it doesn't feel right breaking it into like selling the chapter, because it just doesn't feel like a complete story. Like when you buy a comic book, it's like there's a complete narrative there for the most part. It might be multi-spanning as far as like an arc goes, but typically you have a beginning, middle, and end, and that's not really how I'm doing the chapters. I mean, there are checkpoints, but they're meant to just lead one into the other. So I just don't. It doesn't feel right putting out the chapters as a print.
Yeah.
until like you have it all together as like a one graphic novel, essentially.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm really coming from, is the graphic novel approach, I suppose, rather than the comic approach, because that's what I didn't grow up with, issue comics and stuff like that. I grew up with graphic novels, specifically like Bone, a lot of Tenaple stuff, a few other things there and there. And so yeah, that's kind of my philosophy on it. That's my kind of logic on it.
So as far as ways
have the
to
story
support you, for people who want to, I feel like you're dedicated to this. It's sort of a self-motivated thing. But as far as, helping you along, what's the best way that people can support you? I know that you have some art for sale over on the shop, or do you have a Patreon?
I have a
else?
Ko-fi or Coffee, however you pronounce it. But I have a Ko-fi. I want to get things set up on the Ko-fi. Currently, what it says, I think, is there's one tier, and of course you can just donate individually, like a few dollars here and there. That goes a long way. I need to start promoting that more myself, honestly. But my goal for it is I want to provide something through that. If you do become like, you're taking your money and you are saying, here, I'm supporting you, I want to offer at least something that is like of value immediately, rather than like what I'm automatically going to do, right? And so one thing that I've thought about is stuff like that's another thing, actually. Everlade does make a good point, is commissioning me. I just did a black and white piece for him.
It looks really killer too.
Yeah, it does.
Super fun piece to do.
Yeah, I got to see that. That was really that almost made it into the thumbnail.
Oh yeah.
That almost made it into the thumbnail when you sent it, and I was just like, "Whoa, that's really." But I really wanted it to be some of your other artwork. But yeah, I saw that when you sent it over, and I was like, "That's holy crap!" You got some talent, man.
That's actually a style that I really enjoy doing. So if you're in the mood if you want something like that, or I have a whole collection of black and white pieces I've done, both on my website, and I did for Inktober. I did a what's it called? A time lapse of all of them, all 31 days.
Oh wow,
that's really cool.
And yeah, it was super fun, and I really developed that style during that time. And so that's a really easy commission for. I can do those in a couple hours.
Are you okay if I show the Evely? Are you okay if I show that?
Yeah, go for it. That's public. It's on my Twitter. I showed it on my Twitter and everything.
Okay.
Evely has no problem.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
there's also a magazine, an Iron Age magazine, that's always looking for artists. So
I actually wanted to get into contact with you about that, because I have a comic. I hopefully could do it in probably like 10 pages or something like that. That I would love to like do something like that with.
Oh man, I would love to have a comic from you. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where it's like, give me a 10-page comic, and it's like, then other people are like, well, why is the Blind King chapter 3 not out yet? And they're like, well, you see, Anvil magazine.
You see, here's what happened was.
Yeah.
This here is the Evely. Like that is so freaking cool.
I like it.
That was so much fun.
And Evely's been killing it lately. Also,
dude's been
in
on
general.
Point,
he's been everywhere. Like he can. It's so
hilarious.
Yeah, I made the
I saw that
Anvil unboxing video. I really got a kick
so
out of
good.
that one.
That was really good. Yeah, he takes the axe and like cuts the box open, and I'm just like, how did you cut that? I saw that and I was just like,
jump
how
cut.
did
Very nice.
no, it wasn't even just a jump cut. I was like, what did you do to make that a thing that looked like the thing that you did?
Don't question it, Bryce.
No. I have to question it, because in my brain I'm like, I've done camera work like that and I know what that takes.
Man, many talents, that one.
Let's see.
But to kind of go off at the point where it's like, oh, where's chapter 3? I'm gonna give full disclosure. I work as a teacher to support myself. It'll be out when it's out. Like I can only do so much. You know?
I know. I'm just.
Oh,
saying,
you mean?
I don't
Oh,
want to
you mean
throw
that?
me under the bus is what I'm saying. Justifiably
No.
throwing me under the bus if I trying to lure you out. Yeah, and by the way, you are terrible with your Ko-fi because I can't even find it. It's not on your website or your Twitter.
It should be somewhere. I got
This-
it.
You'll find it. Just be on the internet long enough, you'll stumble across it. Never mind the
One
other
of these
things.
days,
You'll
um,
stumble.
You're gonna
part
have
of
to
the-
take some shilling lessons from Daniel here. If
Yeah, no, honestly. Like, part of the
No,
reason is because I
no,
haven't had it,
don't
like,
show for
set-
no.
Shut everything down. Stop talking about everything. Just stare into the camera and don't say a word.
I'll just send it.
That's-
Screw it. 1 second.
Daniel's the
Don't
worst
listen
shill
to me.
ever. Okay. I'm
Don't
gonna.
listen to me.
So Daniel's the worst shill ever, and I am absolutely going to read this. I have to go back to the Wednesday post that I made because this is the most hilarious stuff ever. It's the Wednesday post, Animated Moon. It's on Twitter. I don't know if you know, or X now. Dumb name.
X gonna give it to you.
Go and give it to you. X. Sorry, damn it. Now it's stuck in my head every time. But so here's the post. I copy and paste this every week because I'm going to be honest, my days are filled up, and coming up with a quippy one-liner for telling people how to share their stuff is, hey, it's finally Wednesday. Drop your projects down below for the weekly shout-out live stream tonight. And don't forget to retweet and tag everyone. The more, the merrier. And Daniel, here's his shill. You don't have to read this, but I wanted to share it all the same. We literally gave you shit on that stream. Like, even
know, I
Trippy
was
was like, I
watching.
love Daniel, but his shills are like, no, that's not.
Hey,
What?
You
No.
quit after the first couple of lines, and that's why I said that, because it was long and I didn't want you to have to do that. But you didn't listen.
Royce not listening, huh?
Oh, you motherfucker.
That was an off the cuff, long ass poem.
I mean, it was really good. It got a lot of people hooked, and they were like, "Oh," and they're like, "Dude, we want to hear more." I'm like, "Well, then vote for it." And they didn't do the thing.
I don't care.
That's the
Better
problem with
project.
having a bunch of randos just like vote to see which one we're going to talk about at the end of the night. I don't know. It's a terrible show. I try.
Nah, much better projects.
No, dude, it's so hard. It's so hard on Wednesdays because there are so many projects that are just unbelievably good, but all in different ways. And that's the hard part. You can see the creativity, you can see the passion, you can hear what people are telling to you, and it's gotten to a point, at least on my end of things, it's like, okay, like I feel like I'm like, I have to go with my knee-jerk reaction, but because I host the show, I don't even get really to do my knee-jerk reaction. So as I'm scrolling through a lot of times, and everybody's like, oh, I wanted this one, so I have to scroll up and I have to pull up that window. I'm seeing all the projects again, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know which one I want to choose. But I have to vote. Those are my rules. I have to pick one. I have to do it. And it I get caught sometimes because I always tell people, they're like, man, I don't know. I'm caught between like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and I just don't know. I'm like, just pick. And to keep the show rolling on, like me as the host, I'm like, well, I can't be like, oh, well, I've got like 5 of them that I want to, because I want to shout them all out. And I'm like, I have to pick. And so so that's usually why I try to save my vote for the last, is because I let everybody get theirs out, and then it kind kind of gives me a chance to scroll through. And half the time I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. It's unbelievable the amount of talent that is attaching themselves to this Iron Age moniker. I didn't think that was going to be a thing when this Iron Age thing kicked. I don't know, because you see a lot of people attach themselves to like indie projects and stuff like that before. There must be something different about whatever the philosophy is behind this movement, because there's nothing out there that I would say that is trashed here. There's nothing out there that's garbage. There are things that out there that I could say are probably mid, but nothing that's genuinely bad that I've seen so far. And I don't know why this movement garners that type of talent out of the indie world. Do any of you guys have an idea on that?
I
Well,
would
I
say
think-
it's passion oriented as much as talent.
Well, I also think that there are a lot of people out there who are coming at this from a different angle than what you've seen a lot of other creators come at it from, right?
Yep.
So I think that if you look at, well, I mean, like the Animated Moon is a perfect example of this, right? He was talking about his experience that really set him on this path and solidified these things. Is that a lot of people are out there kind of trying to create something for the attention of having created it. That's sort of the standard way that a lot of entertainment has become over the past few decades. I would say
Definitely.
it's more about being part of that culture of, oh, I'm an artist. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm somebody
I'm
who
an artist.
yes, exactly. And all that. It's like, oh, I'm an author and I'm whatever. And it's not necessarily that it's driven by, actual like a love of the medium or the need to share some vision or some idea, as much as it is that it was like a social club, a cultural, a desire, something beyond the product, essentially, that they had some, not that it's bad to have goals beyond just a single like product. I want to tell this story or something else. That's fine. But that was their driving motivation were things outside. All the art, all the everything else was just kind of tools. And so I think that's been the standard for so long. And I think that it's really, I don't think anybody would argue that the rot is really starting to become incredibly obvious. And it's gone from like hampering the creation of things to just outright making certain quality impossible,
Yeah.
in the mainstream. And so you have all these people and, well, yeah, like Daniel said, I mean, it's passions because people are realizing that there are, that my God, if I don't do this, not only is nobody going to do it exactly this, but nobody's going to do anything even that close to it either, So,
Well, uh-oh. That was weird. I touched buttons that I shouldn't have. Sorry, my audio monitoring disappeared and I was just like, no.
it's
Audio monitoring is highly important. But I saw it was Iron Age Marketing. Nikki, he shared that clip. He and Daniel were talking about how
Blue collar creatives.
there's a blue collar creative movement. It's like the blue collar guys are just there's a different mentality with blue collar, workers who are now creating than there was with all these other people. And it's that we get the job done. You just you have to get the job done. That's what blue collar people do. And at least what I've been exposed to you know, there's definitely a blue collar feeling to all of this. It's like there's a job to get done. I'm going to get this job done. And that's just how it's going to be. And come hell or high water, it doesn't matter what happens. Not only am I going to deal with the stresses of the day, but I'm also going to get this thing done. Mm-hmm. And I actually tagged Razorfist on Twitter for that, and I try not to tag the bigger people very often because they probably get tagged 17,000 times a day. I know how much I get tagged in a day, and I can't even imagine their level. But I really felt that. I was like, yeah, the blue collar guys are finally coming out going, oh no, we're making stuff now. Mm-hmm. And there is a mentality behind that. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. I know that feeling. I know what you guys are talking about. And is that something that the rest of you can kind of agree with? Is that it's...
Yeah. Well, I thought the idea was apt because, as I was explaining it in the short time I had with Nikki P, you know, it's the guys that are doing the job and then they're gonna go talk about it with their buddies over a couple of drinks. But the more I was thinking about it, there's another aspect of that which we've talked about 1,000 times, which is you get a bunch of blue collar guys together and go, I want to build a shed. What's going to happen?
It's going to get done.
It turns into a weekend where every single one of them descends on the ground and makes it happen. And that's what we do in the Iron Age. Mm-hmm. You know, we say, I want to do this, and everybody bands together in some way, giving ideas, working on stuff, creating things and sending it over to get the job done.
I've had that with the Smoker Project, actually. Like, I've had, you know, a buddy of mine come over. Obviously, family and other obligations happen, but people have helped me. It's like guys at work are finding things and bringing it here, man. We found this for you. Like it's just that thing. It's that blue collar mentality. Oh, we're gonna build something. Oh, and it's not that. Oh, we're gonna build something and it'll get done in 5 years. No. This thing's getting done. And I experienced that in my day-to-day. And I loved when you guys were talking about that because not a lot of people talk about the blue-collar guys. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people. I have actually... the funny thing is I have actually, in a weird way, and I can't believe it, but I have experienced the prejudice of being the guy wearing a hard hat because of where I used to work. I used to work in the Denver metro area. I used to work around Boulder, Colorado. And if you wore a hard hat and a vest, they didn't even want to look at you. They didn't want you in their shops. They wouldn't let you use the bathrooms. It was people look at the blue collar workers like they are trash, like they're not worth even being in the building. But if I went in there in my street clothes, they wouldn't think anything about it. But if I go in there in my business suit, which is, a high-vis vest and a hard hat and safety glasses and all that, they've got a big problem with it. And it's interesting that I think that a lot of what we're seeing right now with the Iron Age and indie creators is that we're seeing the guys who are wearing the hard hats right now, who are writing the good stories, who are putting the work in, who are doing all of that, are really pissing off those white collar class, we went to college, we know how to write, who have tanked our favorite franchises. And I really think that that's what we're seeing. We're really seeing these people come out and have just a prejudice for the blue collar class. And I maybe I'm wrong, but I'm seeing a lot of similarities. And like I said, I've actually had people turn their nose up at me because I was in a hard hat and a vest for my job. And I'm seeing a lot of, I'm realizing that wasn't just because I'm a construction worker. That's because there's a classist thing kind of going on here, or at least
I think some of it's classist. I also think there's a lot of
A little bit.
well, not to get too far afield, but I do think that this kind of bumps up against the same issue that you run into whenever you encounter things like the sort of secular ideology of a lot of
You said
urban areas, right?
buzzwords.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's you get a. I mean, people have made politics their religion, you know, in a lot of ways. And I mean, yes, you could say that the right has made, you know, and everything else. But I think that much more than that, I think culturally speaking, in a lot of these areas that, I mean, if you look at the parties, there's really not a worker friendly party on the left. You know what I mean? There's really not. And so all of these educated areas,
I would argue that
where
only
the arts live traditionally. You know what I mean?
I would argue that there is a barely majority of a worker friendly party on the right too.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
it's a lot better.
But no, I think you're right. It's the guys that are putting their nose to the grindstone, and it's.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. I mean, if you consider the concept, the mainstream entertainment system is a room full of architects. And
I fucking hate them. I hate architects, engineers.
They can draw whatever the heck they want. They can draw whatever they want, but it takes the rest of us to put the building together. And now those of us who've been putting the building together for years have decided we're going to start drawing our own stuff and then building it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that honestly, I think a big thing that kind of stuck out in my mind was what Richard said earlier, where you have this media inspiring other media. Actually, the term I use for that is incestuous media.
Yeah.
That's where it's coming from. But I
call it a circle jerk.
Yeah.
So, but when I think of inspiration, when I think of where people came from, because like
I accept.
Obviously, you had these really brilliant creators before. You know, where did they come from? Right? They didn't come from Star Wars. Yeah, George Lucas didn't come from Star Wars. You know, he made it, right? Yeah. But I go back to like we talked about Rod Serling earlier. Where did he come from? He came from war. He was like 19, I think, in World War II. He saw things no one should ever have to see, right?
Oh, Tolkien. I mean, look at Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, even C.S. Lewis, right?
Yeah.
I believe so. Another one, and I think that this will lead into another point. Christopher Lee, for goodness sakes, you know, protagonist of the 20th century, had a metal band, for goodness sakes.
Christopher Lee, watching the interview where he described the breath leaving a man's lungs.
Yeah.
And it's such a soft spoken. I can't imagine. He's one of those guys that, or I should say, gentleman. Sir Christopher Lee. He's one of those gentlemen. I cannot imagine that man raising his voice. And for him, when I think he was describing to Peter Jackson during the Lord of the Rings movies, the sound of air leaving a man's lungs, because he had been the cause of that.
Or at least witness to it.
I think he was in I believe World War I or World War II.
World War II.
He was two. He was two. That's right. Tolkien was one. Yeah, Christopher Lee was two.
Yeah, he was undercover in Germany.
Yeah, but he described what it was to put a bayonet into someone's chest and the sound, because he wanted that sound to come out when in the scene. And to hear that, you go, this man who's pretending to be an evil wizard on screen. Let's get really reductive with this, because I like being really reductive with things. This man who's pretending to be an evil wizard on screen, who just fell off a building, is now describing to the director the sound that he remembers after he pulled the air out of someone's lungs. We do not have that today. Even with a lot of our blue collar writers and stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we haven't worked hard. I'm not saying that we haven't sweat. I'm not saying that we haven't been in the trenches. I'm not saying that we haven't done those things. Mm-hmm. But there is an experience level there that the older generation had, and possibly why the stories that we all grew up with just had a magnitude of impact on multiple generations in a way that I think the current day writers cannot achieve, and us blue collar writers can at least get close to.
Well, to kind of further the point under, the interviews and stuff like that, one of the interviews that Christopher Lee did was he essentially criticizing the industry where it was headed. And that was, someone like him, he did not start at the top, right? There was an interview where he talked about that. He was like a stagehand at first, right? He did everything to like get in there, right? And now we're at a point where there is this. I look at like the way that media is kind of portrayed and how it's sold nowadays, and that's a key word because that's what it is. It's branding, right? Why do you put an actor into a film? You don't do it because it's the right actor. You do it because it's good branding, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at. Is this system that is fueled by ego? And I think that this goes actually into what makes this movement different and why I was actually interested in getting involved in it. Is there have been other movements. I'll pick this one. I don't want to get too much into it, but I have some thoughts on it. And that's like the whole Comicsgate thing. Mm-hmm. Kind of one of my criticisms with that is it's like kind of just shifting the goal, or not necessarily, not that's the wrong term, but it's kind of playing to the same music in my book, where it's like ego driven. It's like, oh, we're the guys who used to make all these really good comics or whatever. Now we're doing it again, right? It's like, that's fair enough. That's not what I'm interested in, though. I'm interested in someone who's not done anything before. What can they do, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially if you're coming at it from this perspective of ego, it's like, well, then you think you're all that. You have nowhere to go, essentially, right? I'm not going to witness any growth if that's the perspective you're going to continue having.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's really different about this is these are just, for lack of a better term, I'll include myself in this. We're nobodies. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's great because we have this vast world. There's not this like preordained, like bizarre structure we're trying to kind of like promote brand or whatever,
there's nobody gatekeeping us.
Yeah. Because we can just do it.
Even if they were, we just knock the gate down.
Oh, and
why bother with the gate? Who wants to go into a city that's killing itself?
Why? I gotta be honest. Bro. Like if somebody closes the gate on me, it's just like, oh, well, I'm just gonna go over here and have fun. And when people see that gate's closed, like I'm just gonna say, hey, I got beer, I got chicken. Come on.
Let them lock themselves in their citadels, and they'll be eating each other in the wheat.
Yeah.
Like that's what they do. Yeah. It's like, I have no interest in that. And I think there's a lot of people who didn't have interest in that. And so you see this whole Iron Age thing. It's like Trippy says, it's not a community. It's a movement. You make it what you're going to make it, right? The whole idea is just do something new. Make it yourself, right? True. Whether it's as refined as the professionals, who cares? You're working on that, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we need. Because I think about older creators, that's where they started. They didn't start with multi-billion-dollar franchises, all that kind of stuff. No, they started making terrible things and then they got better. That's how it
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But if you're sitting there, you have to make it the best thing ever immediately. Good luck.
No such thing as perfect.
No, I think that's 100% the way to view things, because so many people are... I am a big proponent of always striving for professionalism in everything that you do.
And you're on this show.
Well, yeah, I know, right? What am I doing? I got to reevaluate things. But no, the thing though is that the delivery systems, all these things that were the structures that kept people out or regulated things. All that stuff has been knocked down, and the reality is that very, very, very few people, even within the Iron Age, I don't think that there's a full appreciation of just how permissionless we are, like how close we are to being able to make that change. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those ones where it grows. The more people who realize that there's no need, it's part of the reason why I barely watch a lot of the culture commentary channels that I still like the guys. I like what they have to say. If I listen to their stuff, I enjoy it, but I don't listen to them because they're talking about something that I just I'm not even aware of it. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Like everybody's talking about the Barbie movie. Fair enough. That actually seems like mildly interesting because it's like a misinterpretation. It's like a Starship Troopers level of like misunderstanding, you know what I mean? Of like director failure or something like that. But that aside, I just
that director
Star Trek. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on. There's dancing Klingons or something.
It
looks terrible.
They did a what is it called? There's a term for it, but it's basically just a musical episode. And yeah, it got blasted.
Is that why I've been hearing about musicals?
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't.
And the thing is too is
I blame Joss Whedon.
I had a sentiment about the cultural commentary guys a while back that was fairly negative. And to a point you'll kind of hear me talk about it in that it's not necessarily for me anymore, but there are so many people every day who are getting that shock that, oh my God, what did they just do to my favorite IP?
Oh yeah, I mean, I understand why they're still doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys will say it's just for money, and it may be for them, and that's fine. The fact of the matter is that it is giving people, when they did to Star Wars what they did. So I did my nostalgia video this last week, and God, I would love to do a 30-minute long full breakdown. I just don't have the time. I might do a nostalgia part 2 because there's so much that I couldn't touch on in a 10-minute video. Mm-hmm. But Star Wars and what they did really once they decanonized the EU, they solidified it with The Last Jedi, and I wouldn't watch it. And I don't talk about Star Wars much on the channel. Mm-hmm. That broke me in a way that I didn't understand could happen with me, because it's a fucking story. It's a movie. And that was weird for me. I'm not even nostalgic for stuff from like when I was a kid. Like stuff getting like, I've really removed a lot of that part of me when it comes to the nostalgia side. And Star Wars for years, I was wishing that they would put something out that was credible enough that I could go back to watching this, that I could go back to seeing this thing. And for years, I was in a space where listening to other people kind of trash on it was cathartic. Mm-hmm. Because for some dumb reason that I still cannot explain today, I had an attachment to an IP so much so that it hurt almost physically. I've never felt that before. I thought, and I would tell people, I'm like, man, that's the dumbest thing ever. That's super, like, it's stupid. It's just a thing. And then it happened to this thing, and I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? And it took me years to work through that whole process. And I realize a lot of these guys out there now who are doing the cultural commentary, who are, they're talking about the Barbie movie. They're talking about the new season of Star Trek. They're talking about The Witcher right now and the Hollywood strikes and how a lot of these IPs are just getting ruined. And I realized where I was and listening to these guys kind of trash on it, kind of dogging it. But they were there with me. They were there going, what the hell why would they do this to this thing that we love so much? And that helped me get through that. Now I realize how foolish I was in that regard, but I've moved past that. And I think, Richard, from what you're saying, you've also moved past that. And I've also seen commentary in my videos where people are like, yeah, it's ridiculous that the guys are still doing that. But I also realized that where I was 5, 6, 7 years ago, that might be somebody today who's just now seeing that thing that they loved with like that was their thing. That was their thing that they loved just get eviscerated in front of their eyes, which I don't know how much more there is left, but I say that, knock on wood. But I mean, I don't know. I got a little off into the weeds on that one, but I feel like because you mentioned some of the people that you still like, the cultural commentary people. I do find it hard to listen to a lot of them because, again, I've moved on. I'm so far removed from all that stuff that they're talking about. But I also realize that we were there once, and that was kind of my point in a nutshell there.
Yeah.
I think I got a little off the weeds on that one, but there's a lot there though, and I think that there would be a lot there for all of us who have gone, who have experienced that and so on. Andrew, did you ever go through that with some of the modern IPs? Did you ever, or were you not?
To be honest, like the thing about me is like. I grew up on Star Wars. I grew up on like the Lord of the Rings movies and everything like that. So and even Star Trek, right? I watched Next Generation when I was in high school. I loved it, right? But I've never had this like everything that I've experienced. I've always felt like it's an instance, right? And I think part of that is I've grown up on stuff over the past like 100 years, right? I grew up with like Laurel and Hardy. I grew up with the Marx Brothers.
Yes.
Oh,
So
shit.
I'm not I was never, as a kid, I was never sitting there like, oh, I can't wait for the next Laurel and Hardy movie. That had been and gone. So I was used to that, right? I was used to letting things go, honestly. It's like because they were already dead. They were gone, but I could still enjoy it, right?
Oh yeah.
And so whenever I heard like, oh yeah, they're screwing up Star Trek or whatever, it's like, well, it's a shame, right? I'm not going to pretend like it's not a shame.
But you have Next Generation to go back to.
You always have that, right? And so the one that I could have seen it happening though, but not necessarily for that reason, I was pretty dang nervous when Netflix announced that they were going to animate Bone. And I was like, they better do it right. Not necessarily specifically because I love, because like I have the comics and stuff like that. I can always go back and read them, right? But I do believe Bone absolutely absolutely deserves to be animated and properly done. That story deserves to have a proper adaptation. So if they screw it up, then it's like, what are you doing? So I could have seen that happening. They canceled it. Maybe that's for the best.
Yes.
It's not the first time that's happened. If I remember, it's been pitched as an animated series many times, and it just never gets there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I feel bad for Jeff Smith, the creator. Like he's really tried to make it happen. And in fact, he actually back in the mid 2000s, he pitched it to Nickelodeon. And it actually fell through because they wanted to turn it into something like music crap. He's like, no, like, don't do that. Just do the story. No, we're not going to deal with you. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever. Got dropped by Warner Brothers before that. So it's happened 3 times now. So I feel bad for the guy. So. Like, it really deserves to be animated and properly done. But who's going to do it right? Who's going to do it right? And
not wrong.
Yeah, and so I mean, there was the same thing, like the
help me get there, I'll do it.
I'll do it. I would love to. Man, I would love to work on an animated series.
Well,
Well,
like
and
I've
it
said
probably
before, I want to animate my Jisedai series eventually, which is why I'm doing the manga version of it. And if I can get that off the ground and it, it takes off in any way, yeah, I know. But if it takes off in any way, I will happily reach out.
I just want like one of you guys is going to make an awesome animated film one day, and I just want to be some idiot Irish guy in the corner that does a voice over acting for you. That's what I want to do. I'm not because I can
do it right.
It depends on it depends on where you're pulling from.
You and I are going to have to get drunk before you go on, camera in front of the mic.
I can make that happen. I don't know. I'll get drunk with you and do the Irish thing. If you come over to the barbecue, you guys both backed out. You bunch of pansies.
I didn't back out.
I didn't back out because I never backed in. So
yeah,
I was a flake from the beginning. Let it be known.
Oh God!
I was like, say when, and I'll fly out. But Richard was like,
well,
it's true. It's true. Richard's
August.
a buzzkill.
That seems like a bad
buzzkill.
Well, I was thinking more like a Labor Day weekend thing, like a long weekend thing. It's just that I'll talk with you guys about some things. Smoker's almost done.
Right?
We do. However, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta go use the bathroom again. I'll be back. I'm sorry.
Well,
when you drink as much as I do,
that's why you don't break the seal until the show's over.
Okay, that's called pain, good sir. We're not doing that.
Be a man.
I'm not 18 anymore. I don't. No, I ain't got nothing to prove, dude. Dude, after you've had a baby diaper explode on you, you realize, wow, I have nothing to prove to anybody else in my life right now. For all the dads out there who you thought the baby was done and there was that, yeah.
This is
I have nothing.
Great content.
I have nothing to prove to you people. That's where I'm going with this. I'll be back.
Go to the bathroom, Brooks.
Why do you gotta say it like that? What?
Just I'm gonna start reading super chats if you're not.
No, you can do that. I'm half delusional. It's so okay. Full transparency. Hella stressful week at work. Not because of my job, but because of external things like just a part of my job. And I am mentally tapped because of everything that I have had to do, the documentation I have had to track down, provide, numbers I've had to crunch, like conversations I have had with multiple government agencies. Like it's just been a week. And so I do my best to provide our guests with the best interviews that I possibly can. Tonight is one of those nights where I'm very, very glad to have Daniel and Richard here because of everything going on. It's one of those things where the brain's like, dude, you should just shut down. And I'm like, but brain, I have things to do. And then the brain's like, we're going to start powering down. And they pull that big old lever, the big old nuclear reactor lever. And I'm just like, stop it. And the brain's just like, yeah, we're getting there. But yeah, it really has been one of those weeks that's just, oh God. Daniel, how are you still a full hand above the...
Because you told me I had to stay close to the microphone.
Oh yeah, I did actually. That is the 57. You want to be close. Sounds good though.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually told people, they're like, Royce, why don't you use the 57? I'm like, because I bought a microphone that's like 4 times as expensive as that one. But
all of my willpower is going to sitting upright.
it's awesome. All right, guys, I will be right back. I do have to use the bathroom really quickly. Also, probably check on the family to make sure everybody's good and make sure that the kids are behaving for the wife. I will be right back. You guys can ask whatever questions you want to. Send in super chats if you want to. You're probably going to make fun of me. It's okay.
Yes.
But yeah. So I'll be right back. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's the more so, guys. It's the mental. Let's talk about how much we love Mint. No, you're not talking about that. You traitorous commie bastards. I'm sorry. Mint ice cream is disgusting.
John, can you
You're
just
wrong.
have to do it. Anyway.
Wrong.
No, not wrong. Animated Moon, where are you on this discussion? Mint ice cream, yes or no?
Yes or no?
I could go either way.
Oh my god.
What is wrong with you? That's dirtier than the yes.
Yeah, I know. It's shameful.
No, not wrong. Mint ice cream is disgusting.
Listen, all I'm saying is that all I eat is like pretzels and like the same 3 meals. I don't really.
Did you say pretzels for 3 meals?
Almost, but same 3 meals and pretzels.
All right, I think Royce is far enough away from the microphone now that he's not still sitting at the desk. But is anybody else find it a little disturbing that he immediately started talking about a diaper whenever he said he had to go to the bathroom? I don't know.
Maybe he's thinking
it worried
about
me just a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he's thinking about upgrading so he can make it through the stream.
Yeah, and then he proceeded to sit there as though it really wasn't that urgent after all. I don't know. I don't know.
Number 4.
How do we go on from that? That's
hold
the
on.
question I'm gonna.
We go on to super chats. That's what we do.
there.
Or Royce can text us from the bathroom.
Okay, let's read some super chats before he just decides to terminate the stream.
He'd
All
have to
right.
come back to the desk to do that.
This wasn't a super chat, but I saved it anyway because I was this was also my favorite part, Guilty Gearhead. Whenever he said it's mooning time, so always good. And then Maji Chan also loves being mooned, so we got a lot of fans of mooning around here. So that's good for you.
I'm not sure
if you like being mooned, you should check out his live streams on his YouTube channel. Let me get the link here. So aside from mooning people, what do you do on your live streams? Can you tell us just a little bit? You draw, you play some excellent music.
I assume he animates
Apparently.
things.
Yeah.
Well, you would be surprised. so primarily, I've been working on the comics so much that's been the primary thing that I've been working on.
Mm-hmm.
I did last time. I started working on an animatic / storyboarding for a little idea I have. I'll probably do that. I'll start doing that a little bit more. And then before that, I actually did Evelay's piece, the black and white piece. So I do just a lot of art stuff. I would like to do some game stuff for the fun of it.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. But kind of on the back
Would you
burner,
be
as
interested
well as
in doing illustrating for a card game? Just a short number of something like 26, 22 cards, something like that. Anyway, never mind.
Potentially,
Maybe it would. We would have to talk about it. Yeah.
But that'd be a lot of work. But let's see. The other thing I really want to get into is obviously you can see like got all this music stuff behind me, and this is actually technically like
Mentally unstable.
Well, that goes without saying, but
No, I was talking about Royce, but
okay. But the big thing that I want to do is like this whole thing is actually set up to run.
Uh-oh.
don't break anything.
Don't pull a
It's
Royce
Game
on
Boy.
us here.
Oh,
So
okay.
it'll be fine. But
It's a Game Boy.
actually-
You could throw it off of a highway; it'd be fine.
You could, but this whole music setup, with the exception of the organ itself, is actually meant to run off of this, so I can do it live, basically via MIDI. So I would love to get into that for live streams and stuff like that. But again, I have to tear down the board. So unfortunately, I was going to do that like last month, but not gonna happen for a bit. So might be a little while before I do that, and I have to like plan how I'm gonna do it. But yeah, so that's kind of, I guess my streams are just kind of just whatever, honestly, and that's kind of goes for my channel. Just there's a lot I want to do, and my hope is that like it'll always kind of have a through line of like my fingerprints on it, and people can really appreciate that, because I don't want to just do the Blind King forever, right? It's a temporary project. It's going to be gone next couple of years. Hopefully, I'll be able to be wrap the project up. Hopefully, and move on to other things. I got a lot of other stories I want to get to and make happen, and so.
Same.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes, right?
You just need more time.
Honestly, yeah, like I need more energy is what I need. I have a lot of time. I've been really lethargic as of late.
Maybe it's all those pretzels. I don't want to,
It might be. It might also be the fact that I'm missing an
much
organ, but
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But that's a whole other story.
Just slide
yeah,
down in there, move on.
Got to get it in there somewhere. But yeah, that's yeah. I do a lot of stuff, a lot of variety, and just I like to explore things. I like to just and share it. I love sharing stuff. Welcome back.
Hey, Royce, how's it going?
Didn't leave the
Good to
chat.
see ya.
Watch the chat. Still talking about mint ice cream. It's disgusting. All of you people are gross.
You doing okay, man?
Hey,
I am mentally tapped. I
was
like.
gonna say, you were in the bathroom for a minute.
No, I was getting bread. I was frantically looking for food because I didn't eat food before I started this.
That's okay.
I'm not professional, people. I've
had a bagel today. I should probably eat more food. I unfortunately.
I've so been there. I'm just like, what did I eat yesterday? Oh.
I tend to exist on hot wings and ramen, so.
Hey, I make mean ramen, actually. I'm probably going to be cooking ramen tonight.
Drunk ramen is the best ramen.
If
I
my
make homemade ramen. Proper ramen.
Mm-hmm.
If my wife didn't stop me from like just moving in the directions that I move, I probably wouldn't eat. She'll yell at me. She's like, "Hey!" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Come here, eat now." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I should probably do that."
Honestly, that's what I see.
Wives are good like that.
Yeah, they are.
They kind of want you to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Try
Yeah.
heavily when I can.
All right. I think we got one super chat left here from the Ultimate Kahuna.
Uh-oh.
I'll take this one while you eat your bread there. Get your one meal a day in.
Oh, mad.
The last time I heard people say something positive, I was at the doctor's office. We need to collaborate and become better. Iron Age will thrive with collaboration. So
Really, Kona?
Fortunately, if you're in California, it's no big deal now. But
Okay.
That's the second time I've heard that joke tonight.
oh, really?
I was listening to Friday Night Tights earlier, and they made a very, very similar joke.
It's not exactly that original, so
No, but it's still funny.
It's still funny that you heard it twice.
Oh man. So I know because Richard has probably already shared the links in the chat, but Andrew,
Sure.
Animated Moon, where can we find you? What are you doing? How are you doing? And so on.
Well, the most active stuff I'm on is on YouTube. I try to stream every week. Every now and again, I'll take a break. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. is kind of the standard time. Every now and again, I'll deviate from that. Usually I try to announce it before. But that's the place to find me if you want to chat with me, if you want to see what I'm up to, what I'm working on. If you want to see my work, past work and where everything lands, that's my website, theanimatedmoon.com. I really want to I got to get more stuff going so that people can be more involved and stuff like that.
I love the people in this movement because they're like, no, I got to do more. I work 19 hours a day on everything, and I only sleep for 5 hours a day. But I got to do more. I love the people in this movement.
That's the thing. I have a lot of downtime. Like I said, I've been really lethargic as of late, so I've got to get back into working out stuff.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that. Shh. Don't do that.
Do more stuff.
But yeah, there's lots to do. I'm looking forward to what's coming down the pipeline. There's some projects I'm really excited about. Hopefully starting. Actually, I picked up a tripod not too long ago that I'm looking forward to putting to good use. Maybe not this year, but in the future, it'll definitely be used for a project.
Okay. Keep your secrets.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a hint. I mentioned some of my inspirations being things like Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. So if you run on that line of thinking, that gives you a good idea of what I've got in mind for something in the future. So
he's going to be doing some.
Looking forward to that.
You need to touch base with Christopher Moonlight. You need to touch base with, huh?
Yes,
fellow Moon.
See, Christopher Cooksey, you need to touch base with him because he
busy making badass sci-fi.
Dude, I am waiting for that. He's getting close though, right?
Well, I mean, he's definitely making major progress. I don't know how close he is to finished yet, though.
I don't like you and your writer bullshit. You're like, well, making progress, but I'm not close. What the fuck is even that?
Process works, man.
Yeah,
Daniel,
that's a big project. It's going to take a little while.
It is. It actually is.
Yep.
I'm almost hoping he gets ready for release around the 1 year date that we had him on the show, because that would just be very poetic. And if we could schedule it around the 1 year date that we had him on the show, that'd be great.
2, but yeah,
Might be. I mean, he's making incredible progress.
I'm not saying you're just
practically doing it himself.
I know you guys are just negative.
It's not negative.
Nancy's.
Go back to the bathroom, Royce.
I had to go get bread too. Okay. Why are you guys picking on me? Daniel, where can we find you? What are you up to, good sir?
At whimsyland.org. Yeah, the thing at the bottom of the screen. That's where you can find me. Or you can find me on Twitter at Mr. DP Riley. My DMs are open. You can ask me questions, talk to me about stuff. I do have coaching spots open if anybody's interested. I am booked up for the month of August and possibly September as far as editing is concerned. But if you don't mind waiting, I'll be happy to do some work for you come November and December. Just reach out.
That's awesome. Richard, I want to ask what you're up to, but I have a feeling what you're up to rhymes with Anvil and also with Schmamville.
Fuck.
I don't know.
Actually, speaking of rhymes, I did grace everyone with a terrible limerick. So that's one.
Go ahead, do it.
Limerick.
Hold on. I need to remember what it was precisely.
Is this one of those where your wife
pull it
looks
up
at
on
you and
Discord.
just is like, I can't believe you did this? Is it one of those, or is it not that bad? Oh,
It's not that bad.
No.
Oh, somebody posted a ramble. Anyway, it was. Let's see here. There once was an editor named Daniel with locks like a cocker spaniel, giving novels a stare while he sat on his chair, wishing they'd read a damn manual. So that's my contribution. There's my poetic
Richard's creative side.
Yeah, that's my creative side.
And deep within his gut, he let out a big groan.
That's what I like about limericks. That's it. They're done.
Yeah.
It's over.
That's great.
So,
Okay.
and then
I could write
obviously,
you could write in Dr. Seuss story off of that.
Initially, Cocker Spaniel.
Cocker Spaniels they're very popular in dog shows because they have such
They
nice,
are, that's
nice
true.
coats.
That's
So,
true.
you know,
And I do have a resplendent mane.
I mean, you know, it's not.
Oh
I just
man,
thought it was
I
so
have
funny.
not heard resplendent in a long time.
You're on a panel with a writer, man. You're gonna hear words.
You're gonna hear words. Oh God.
All right, but yeah. Anyways, that's all I got. Anvil Magazine. The trailer's out. Mr. Culta did a fantastic trailer there. Evely did a hilarious unboxing video that I'm probably going to use as an ad.
That was amazing.
And
That was amazing.
yeah, things are moving right along. As always, there's IronAge.media, prompts, articles. TJ Marquis has a new video series called Indie Scan that I'm going to start highlighting on Mondays. So if you aren't already subscribed to his channel or you don't want to watch there, you can check it out on IronAge.media. So that's all the news. Chill stream Sunday. I don't know. What else?
Follow Anvil Magazine.
Yes, go give me your money.
Second time I've had to remind him to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, I did drop the link.
You do it for other people, but you won't do it for you. You're like,
You're damn right.
it's kind of gay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh
Really?
my God. Yes. And before this gets out of hand, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here on Iron Age Nights. Oh man. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow night here on the channel, it's been a while, but we're going to be back with Star Shatter. So for those of you who are interested in the Star Shatter tabletop, we've got to fight some ghosts tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, ghosts. That's where we left off. And I still want my ship, and Black Knight won't give me my ship, and I don't know why.
Give the fake Irishman his shit, Black
I
Knight.
just want the ship, and he won't let me have it. Trying
You must
so hard.
store the cosmos being gay.
Okay, sir. Oh my goodness, Lord. Oh man, it has been absolutely fantastic. Animated Moon, seriously, dude, thank you so much. Man, I love having people on the show as passionate as you are. Like,
Hey, well, that's what I do.
it's nice. Because sometimes you get people that are like, here's my shill, I'm out. And you're just like, you didn't do that.
No, I love talking about this stuff. I love
the
trying
use
to
of retro
encourage
gear.
this stuff. Oh yeah, you gotta have fun with it, you know.
You got to. No,
You're
absolutely.
gonna, yeah, you managed to geek out with both Royce and myself. Right?
I know. Oh, yeah. That's weird. That doesn't have. Oh, God. The universe is collapsing. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And we will see you all next time. Cheers, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.